Okay, so the best Misfortune player in Korea actually buys Zhonya's Hourglass as a late game Misfortune item on, well, almost on a regular basis. I've seen multiple games of his where he does this in the recent past. And the playstyle is in general quite interesting. It's very fast-paced, very early game focused. The build reflects that. So again, Zhonya's is a... Wait, they're already fighting level 1. That's not too good for this Misfortune. He has a full poke rune page. By the way, runes and items on the screen, if that's all you came for. So there you go. But this Misfortune, we have all the poke runes. Well, that was an aggressive heal, just for the movement speed to avoid getting hit by that rel stun. Yeah, lane phase very important. You don't want to fall behind there. So understandable, but still quite, well, wasteful of that cooldown. Anyway, we have level 2 here, and Nautilus goes in, trying to make use of the early game power. Misfortune with the prior damage on Kai'Sa might be enough to kill her now with Nautilus Ignite, which is not the case. Misfortune obviously could not follow up fully. Okay, we see the flash from Rel here, but she could not follow up when Rel was in her face. Okay, there's the flash auto attack, premium play. Okay, very aggressive right from level 1, and again, the rune page reflects that. We have all the early game runes you can take, with Arcane Comet, with Cheap Shot, and with Scorch. So this might make you believe it's an E-max playstyle, but there's really no incentive to max E. All you get is a lower cooldown and a little bit more base damage, but the slow stays the same. So it's a Q-max build, Q-max first, W-max second, E-max last. But we do have the level 1 E, just so you can get the poke going with Arcane Comet, with Cheap Shot, and with Scorch. The build is a very aggressive lethality build, but the build order is very flexible. It's always a tier start, and the most vanilla build order is Duskblade first, into Berserker's Greaves, into Manamune, into Edge of Night, into Cyrilda's Grudge, and then Zhonya's Hourglass. But in this game, this player went for, as we will see, he will go for, I obviously saw the summary of the game on the stat websites, but they go for Edge of Night first item in this one, which I find quite interesting. Normally, well, Edge of Night is rather low damage compared to other lethality items, and it's a little bit more passive as a consequence. You only really want to get this early if you desperately need that spell shield. So I personally would advise to get Edge of Night early when you are against a Leona, for example, who can... This build obviously heavily focuses on Misfortune's ultimate, so when you're against a Leona, she can always press R on you when you press R, and this counters this entire playstyle. So then you need the spell shields to prevent her from doing that for free all the time. Or against a Malphite, same story, just a little bit worse even, because he then ults, again, ults you when you ult, and a Malphite ult to the face usually means you're just dying. So there you need an early Edge of Night, but in this game, well, maybe Galio and Rel engage. I'm not really sure why, but this player certainly has their reasonings. Okay, we see the engage, immediately follow up with E, and Kai'Sa looks dead here to the Taliyah gank. Yeah, she has nowhere to run. Now blue team, all they need to decide is to whom do they give the kill. Taliyah gets the kill, it's fine. Misfortune would have liked the kill for sure, because AD carries scale quite nicely with items, even lethality AD carries. But on Taliyah it also makes sense. She's an early game focused jungler, and she can snowball the rest of the map with that kill if everything goes according to plan. Also, this build is surprisingly beginner friendly if you're a new Misfortune player, because it has all the mana in the world. So one of the biggest issues with Misfortune is mana management, but when you have a tier from level 1 and a mana flow band in your runes, it's quite easy to play. So feel free to go wild with this build if you're just starting out with the champion, and if you want to focus on, well, if mana management, it takes away some of your brain capacity, right? You need to allocate resources in your mind to the resource management in game. So if you have that out of the way, you can focus on the more fundamental aspects on League, learning how to rotate, when to be where on the map, how to fight, because you can't really do that if you're running in the first place, and then you don't know how to take actual fights, because you don't have the mana to take the fights to begin with. In any case, we have a beautiful Serrated Dark Power Spike, ER combo. I want to show you. This right there is the only combo Misfortune truly has. You E, so they are slowed, so they can't dodge out of the cone from Q, and then you Q the minion while they can't avoid it, and they take free damage. It's a super free combo. applies a lot of pressure. They're inclined to not walk towards you when you E, so this is definitely something you should be doing on a regular basis for free pressure during the lane phase. But now we have a little bit of a 1v2 situation going on. MissFortune does need to wait for Nautilus to fully return. Also, the minions, of course, deal a lot of damage, so you don't want to go on the offensive too much. However, Taliyah using that control ward to set up a potential next gank. But looks like the enemies are playing this carefully enough. This is a high elo Korean solo queue game, so you can't expect the opponents to make the most basic of mistakes. But yeah, still, blue team with a lot of control in the bot lane right now. Serrated Dark, also one of the most powerful components in the entire game if you're an AD champion, because lethality early game is just so strong. And MissFortune, of course, makes use of lethality and raw attack damage just perfectly. There are other champions on whom you could argue Noon Quiver is a better first item, but on MissFortune especially, because she mainly scales with raw attack damage, Serrated Dark is just so powerful. And yeah, we can see again, she just presses E on cooldown, making use of her runes. We can have a look at the stats. Yeah, the quick bursty trades. This is exactly why you don't really need attack speed items, especially not with this playstyle. Okay, Nautilus finds it. She has ulti. Kai'Sa and Rel do not have ulti. Okay, we see another E. No reason to ult there. Rel is just dead. This ult is still okay. Getting rid of the wave makes it easy for Nautilus to finish the job. But yeah, MissFortune, of course, when she doesn't have her E, can't really lock down the enemy Kai'Sa for a, not solo kill, but for a safer approach. So the flash was necessary to prevent Kai'Sa from auto-attacking MissFortune for free. However, just getting the wave makes it so much easier for Nautilus to just run at Kai'Sa and kill her. And yeah, blue team now translated this early game build with the early game rune page into a beautiful lead in lane. But let's talk a little bit more about the Zhonya's Hourglass purchase. So, AD carries tend to get one-shot in the late game by burst champions, and or pretty much even by bruisers. Jax is not really known for his burst damage, he still one-shots AD carries. Nidalee is a burst champion, of course one-shots AD carries, and Zhonya's Hourglass, or the stasis effect that comes with it rather, is I would argue it's the most powerful defensive tool in the entire game. But unfortunately, all we AD carries get is Guardian Angel, which is a lot less reliable. Okay, we see a fight here. Nautilus will probably go down. This is a 2v3. This is risky. Yeah, I would be surprised if blue team takes this, because if they overcommit, they just die due to numbers disadvantage. And red team has all the time here to regroup after getting that kill on Nautilus. But all we have as AD carry players is the item Guardian Angel, really. And Zhonya's Hourglass, because you can just... Okay, now red team is being stupid. They're overcommitting so hard. Rel isn't really healthy. Yeah, she didn't have enough HP to do that, and despite Galio... Okay, that kind of worked out for them. Syndra's teleport was a little too aggressive, but still, we're just trading kills 1-for-1 here. And both mid laners abandoned mid lane, so no team can get a quick advantage there. But you see MissFortune, this is not really an all-in build. You want to poke down and follow up. This is almost like... what's a good comparison? So for fighting, it's more like a Samira, as weird as it sounds, because all you're doing is waiting for your teammates to make a play. Of course, Samira dashes into melee range, yada yada. MissFortune presses ER, and this way you want to mess up your opponent. And in lane, it's definitely a poke champion, so you don't want to find the all-in, really. You see, Nautilus gets the grab, lands it on Kai'Sa, only then does MissFortune walk up to get the Q auto combo. Beautiful follow-up again. Yeah, just capitalizing off your allies' engages and not really looking for these intense extended duels. You just want to get your quick burst damage in there and then get out. But again, Zhonya's Hourglass is a very interesting item because it allows you... I mean, it's definitely way more skill intensive than, let's say, Guardian Angel, because you need to consciously decide when you press it and when you don't press it. Because if you press it in the wrong moment, it can actually hurt you more than it helps you. Since you are also stuck in position, you might miss out on dealing damage when no one has been focusing you in the first place. So putting yourself into stasis, it's a commitment, and you need to know when and why you do it. But once you have that skill down, it's a very powerful defensive tool. And MissFortune actually has some AP scalings in her kit. With the full lethality build you're going for with this one, so with Dustplate plus a lethality item, in this case Edge of Night, Already got the Edge of Night, by the way, as you can see from the spell shield. Okay, this fight in the mid lane is really extended, but I think MissFortune is a little bit late to the party. I'd be surprised if she gets much mileage here. Yeah, a couple auto attacks here and there, but nothing major. Anyway, your ult absolutely shreds the enemy to pieces if you have Duskblade plus Edge of Night plus Mirror Mana plus Cyrilda's Grudge. So yes, with AP, your ult damage doesn't increase by as much, but it still increases. Ult still has an AP ratio. Your Q has a small AP ratio. Again, way worse than if you just buy attack damage for the gold. And your E, of course, also has an AP ratio. Most crucially, the slow has a little bit of an AP scaling. But again, you don't buy Zhonya's because of the stats it provides. The armor is nice too. Armor probably the best stat on the item, and cooldown reduction. You buy it despite the stats. You buy it despite the fact it gives you ability power, and ability power not being that, well, powerful in MissFortune. But the active is so incredibly strong. Of course, we will only see it in the late game, because you obviously need your more important damage items first. But I am intrigued. I want to see when this player uses it, because they seem to be rather afraid of the enemy team. Edge of Night first item, plus a late game Zhonya's, that's a lot of gold actually spent on defenses, right? Because Edge of Night also comes with an opportunity cost, which means you could instead be buying a way more offensive lethality item, such as the Collector, right? Collector is literally all offensive stats, whereas Edge of Night you spend some gold on the HP, and you also indirectly spend gold on the legendary item passive you pay for, right? Because again, you need to always, you see, hook, follow up. Nothing more, nothing less. Hook, follow up. It's so simple to play. Very beginner friendly, but the build does yield results, as we can see. It's played by the rank 1 MissFortune in Korea. So, I mean, if a build has results in high elo, you can be sure it will have results elsewhere too. If you want to play it, if you want to main this build, it's definitely a viable build to climb with. So, again, Edge of Night, opportunity cost, defensive stats. But there is a reason. This player, I guess it's Galio. Let's look at the scoreboard. Okay, Nidalee is fed, but I mean the spell shield could come in handy for a stray hit here and there. A spear. Okay, Nidalee gets caught, instantly goes down. Yeah, okay, now red team is low-key throwing. So blue team, the lane phase actually going back and forth a little bit. Top lane actually hard lost, as we can see. So it's definitely a long way to go. And you need to keep in mind, despite the fact this build is not too bad in the late game when you can find those massive ults, it still doesn't scale as well as other AD carries, and especially not as well as Kai'Sa, so the late game will be rather iffy. Despite the fact Kai'Sa is 2-6 and this MissFortune is 3-0 right now, the late game, and I know from the summary and you know from the timestamp, this game is not a quick stomp. It will go late game, and this is where we can truly see how this player pilots the build, because this is the part of the game where it gets really difficult, because you are getting outscaled. In any case, we're returning to bot lane. Bot lane is still very much open for either team. Both teams do have the chance to take the tower first. I mean, you could go mid lane here. It's probably wiser if Syndra stays here. Maybe they were writing in chat and telling them, I don't know, telling each other to go mid lane or whatnot. But both people being in bot lane seems a little bit extensive. We have a dragon coming up soon-ish, but not too soon. So that was a kind of a miscommunication between mid laner and AD carry here. MissFortune, okay, they didn't see the ward here, definitely worth clearing. But MissFortune now in the mid lane, which is fine. In the mid game, we're at 16 minutes right now. Being in the mid lane is definitely useful, because you can be anywhere on the map fairly quickly, and as a consequence impact the team fights there, especially when you have ult backup. So this is also if you're not sure about how to maneuver the macro, or your macro decision making with MissFortune, just make it dependent on your ult cooldown. When your ult is ready, you should be looking to group as much as possible so you can make use of that, and after a fight happened or after a situation occurred in which you felt the need to press R and is then on cooldown, then you can go to the side lanes and farm and don't feel too bad about it, because your ult needs to come back off cooldown anyway. Okay, so we have the Rift Herald in the mid lane. Cracking open mid lane tower is a big deal, because it opens up the entire map. Anyway, red team flank with a fed Nidalee, MissFortune wisely dodging upwards. And again, just standing behind Nautilus waiting for Nautilus to find the engage with ult or with Q, so you can then press R yourself. If you have a look at the items, Edge of Night only 10 lethality, but on top of another Serrated Dirk with an extra 10 lethality, those ults are still gonna hurt. Make no mistake, it's definitely stronger than the ult you get from your, well, crit Misfortune, for example. I mean, the meta build right now is Duskblade, is Ghostblade with lethality, but with First Strike. So these ults will definitely be stronger than Edge of Night ults. But still, these ultimates will hurt. And mid lane right now is rather unsafe. No one of your teammates is there. So Misfortune keeping herself covered. This is so risky. I mean, she has backup here, but face checking enemy territory? Okay, I guess she greeted for that kill, but I don't know. That felt sketchy. Walking straight into the enemy jungle when you don't have vision of most enemy team members. So if you just run into one of them, it spells trouble for you. Anyway, goes unpunished, goes for a recall. This game is still very much wide open. Top lane tower, kind of a disadvantage. Side lane towers, again, not as big as mid lane towers, but still disadvantage for blue team. Mid lane, both towers are gone, so neither team has sufficient vision control on the mid lane. So this fight over the jungle, over the objectives of Dragon and Baron, will be quite interesting. And Misfortune, well, just there in time to get the free kill on Rel, not really necessary because the team was there anyway. It was always nice to be there, always nice to get the gold as an AD carry, just to ensure your late game scaling. And now red team with one teammate down, which means they need to kind of play it safe, be under tower, not look for fights. You never want to fight with numbers disadvantage in League of Legends, it's never going well. And yeah, in this situation here, Misfortune, due to the spell shields, can hit the tower rather freely, which now translates into an even bigger lead for, or into a lead for blue team. It wasn't really a lead before. Yes, they have more kills and a drag. Wait, both teams have a dragon, never mind. But they have more kills. But mid lane tower advantage is really where it's at. Okay, let's look at how this fight developed exactly. So blue team are getting flanked by Galio from out of vision at Nidalee here. Misfortune goes upwards to dodge the enemy front line, which is a very smart move, because if you're getting caught here with nowhere to run as an AD carry, you're just dead, spell shield or not. And this buys her time to wait for the engage to happen, on which you can then follow through with your game plan, follow up with that big ultimate. You see the E for the slow, and the R with 3 people caught inside. Galio can walk out, Jax flashes out, but still, one enemy falls at least. And from this position, Misfortune can now start to clean up a little bit, move in for the Q auto. Doesn't need to be too afraid of the Galio ult because of the spell sheet, but still walks out to preserve that. I mean, kind of defensive positioning, but the spell shield might come in handy later on. However, from this position, I think you don't have the capacity to really chase, especially if Syndra now tanks a spear and Misfortune gets hit by Galio. But overall, really nice execution from Misfortune, finding the out here to not get caught by the initial engage and to then make use of that beautiful ER combo with lethality items. But again, the fight is over and you, well, push the lane past river and then roam. Roaming can also, roaming also can mean just going back to base. It just means leaving the enemy's vision, in a sense, so they don't know where you are on the map, so you can then create pressure passively that way. And now we got the mythic item too, Edge of Night plus Duskblade. Beautiful ult damage build, Duskblade's bonus damage on ult. Of course you don't turn invincible anymore when you kill someone with ult and Duskblade, but the bonus damage on low health targets really comes in clutch. And here is fully stacked at this point as well. So normally, again, this player goes for Duskblade into Edge of Night. No, that's not true. Duskblade into Man Immune and then into Edge of Night. So you have the full powered tier as soon as you get it, essentially. But in this game, again, the early Man Immune for the defenses. Right now, if I'm honest, right now I think it was not the optimal choice here. Because, again, there are no really threatening enemies who would disrupt your game plan of just pressing ER. Okay, beautiful scout with the E. Yeah, you can set up vision around Baron, but you cannot pressure it really at this position. You have a slight mid lane tower advantage, but okay, nice catch. This Rel just falling for the traps left and right, but still, now it's a 5 versus 4. Still, this Baron feels like a stretch. If you look at the scoreboard, Rel is not really a factor. The 5 kills Nidalee is. The 200 CS and 3 kills Jax is. So this fight, I'm not sure. Also, you need to be careful. Some of the Baron attacks can break a spell shield, which you do not want to happen to you. Okay, now she walked into a Nidalee trap. Yeah, very smart to not try to force this Baron. It's not really a position where you can do that. The enemy is too strong, despite being one person down. Never mind, Nidalee gets herself caught. Maybe they can go for Baron now. With a jungler down, that's a lot more likely. But yeah, Dragon is the safer play, straight up. And someone still needs to deal with that Jax. If you go for Baron, it takes ages. Normally, it's an AD carry's job to provide DPS against Baron, but with this, well, not really attack speed focused build, also no lifesteal, taking Baron is kind of awkward. So Dragon definitely safer, also way quicker, so you can then respond to the Jax split push. The top lane difference is actually really starting to show. Not like Rengar is completely useless, but he is 70 CS behind and has lost both his top lane towers already, and has not taken any top lane towers in return. So this might be a problem later on, especially because Jax preys upon AD carries like no other. He just jumps on you, you can't auto-attack him through Counter-Strike, nothing. But this is probably also where Edge of Night and Zhonya's Hourglass will come into play. We'll see. However, this base, we finally should finish our Manamune, right? Right? Yeah, okay, there we go. Manamune also transforms into Mirror Mana instantly because Tia is already stacked. By the way, absolutely crazy item. Look at these stats. It's 35 base attack damage, sure, but all gain bonus damage, attack damage equal to 45 in this case, so 80 attack damage off of a relatively cheap item, plus an on-attack and on-hit effect with bonus damage, plus it solves all your mana problems. It's really crazy. The item is criminally under-purchased on MissFortune, in my opinion, which is also why I personally recommend it in my Navori Quickblades build, right? Anyway, we have 3 items. Lots of attack damage, which is exactly what you need for your MissFortune ultimate, and also lots of lethality. You will need a Last Whisper item as early as possible. Normally you want to get it 3rd, because, or actually with a Manamune build you can make an exception, but in a full lethality build you want to get it 3rd for maximum mathematical efficiency, because this is roughly the point in the game where the Last Whisper item will outperform any lethality item, simply because of base armor level scaling. Anyway, Nidalee trying to maybe set up vision control near Baron, but realistically speaking they should just play around the Jax split push, right? Anyway, blue team kind of neglecting their towers here, right? Not really where you want to be, but yeah, they're finally getting away from Baron and start fixing their lanes again. But this Jax is a huge thorn in blue team's side. I'm not sure how they want to deal with him, really, because he just takes tower after tower in the side lanes completely for free, unchallenged. No player in the blue team can actually deal with him. Rengar dead, Jax knocking at the inhibitor. So in a situation like this as an AD carry, the ugly truth is you can't do anything about it. You have no choice. You can't even go bot lane yourself because Jax just kills you. Okay, here Nautilus and Syndra trying to deal with the problem, but with moderate success. Okay, MissFortune cleans up. It's actually quite important. So after all, okay, after all, blue team managed to respond. Yeah, had they not done this, this inhibitor would be gone. But this situation, are they trying to take... no, they're not trying to take Baron on the red team. Maybe Kai'Sa plus Nidalee, I thought, but no, it's too early for those two to just duo Baron. Quite the contrary. I mean, now Rel is dead and Jax is dead. Now blue team might actually try to do this. Again, kind of awkward position for MissFortune, because, you know, no lifesteal, only, well, Boots is technically an attack speed item. 35% attack speed is not too bad, but still, it's definitely not the build that is known for its Baron taking ability. But here, beautiful ult over the wall, making sure the enemy cannot approach, killing Nidalee in the process, and Nidalee is of course the most dangerous opponent when it comes to stealing Baron due to her smite. Anyway, blue team got the Baron, and this hopefully is enough for them to now get rid of some of the pressure this Jax is applying in the side lanes. MissFortune are also with a Last Whisper item, so we are getting there slowly but surely. Just for reference, I mean, Jax has Randuin's Omen, which is a lot of armor, definitely justifies a Last Whisper item. Galio has Zhonya's Hourglass, also a lot of armor, evened out here. But let's look at Kai'Sa and Nidalee. Kai'Sa, for example, already has how much armor? 80 armor. So even on her, who has no armor item, the full Cyrilda's Grudge will be a better armor penetration item than even the most offensive lethality items. So you definitely need this, even for Kai'Sa, and especially for the enemies who are already buying armor. Dragon is about to spawn. Blue team fighting for dragon control. But, I mean, they have Baron. The split pushes are still going. Galio split pushing bot lane. We saw Jackson split pushing top lane. We saw Jackson the bot lane briefly. Top lane actually falls. This is so awkward. They finish the dragon call fast. But is it enough to stop red team from taking the inhibitors? I don't think so. Okay, actually it is fast enough. Never mind. Baron recall OP. However, all the resources allocated to top lane, meaning no one is there in bot lane, so actually, it's kind of absurd. Blue team got a Baron, yet they still fail to defend their inhibitors. Both inhibitors fall, in fact. Now that they're kind of running circles around them. They try to respond to bot lane, then top lane falls, try to respond to top lane, then bot lane falls. Anyway, MissFortune at least gets a nice kill, following up on the Nautilus's engage. But how do you deal with this Jax, really? It's very tough. The only saving grace here is, first of all, MissFortune's burst damage is high enough to kill anyone on whom Nautilus lands a grab. Okay, and here the spell shield kind of... Okay, that was a nice triple kill. The spell shield actually protecting MissFortune from Jax's counter strike. Normally, without the spell shield, the... Okay, actually, I think the Q got absorbed by the spell shield. But still, without the extra health from Edge of Night, and indirectly also extra health from blocking Q's damage, an AD carry is very likely to just die in a situation like this, so Edge of Night truly coming in clutch here. However, we're still in this awkward position of, now despite having Baron minions, we're 2 inhibitors down. However, you need to keep in mind it's only side lane inhibitors. They're not as bad as mid lane inhibitors, or the mid lane inhibitor, because again, having no control over the center of the map is usually very detrimental. And now we finally make use of that Baron buff with blue team here. Well, it has just expired, but it was still enough pushing power to take the mid lane inhibitor in return. And now the game's actually looking quite good for blue team again. We even take some farm from the enemy jungle. Again, the more you can steal from them, the better, because not only are you getting stronger, but you also keep them weak, right? So the next objective is, of course, to deal with the pressure in the side lanes. You have super minions in the mid lane, so there's no reason to really go there anymore. In the side lanes, however, you have supers pushing against you, but if you're just there and sieging the towers, the supers don't matter. You clear them just as fast if you're grouped. So it is... I mean, ideally, blue team now gets 1 split pusher and 4 people in the other side lane. The awkward thing about this is that no one really can deal with Jax. However, Rel got herself in a really bad situation, gets popped immediately. This Rel is not playing her best. She's 0-10 at this point, and this play, I mean, red team has a lot of opportunities to create pressure in this situation, but if Rel just keeps dying, they're constantly at a numbers disadvantage, and what are they gonna do as a consequence? I mean, it's kind of awkward. They're wasting valuable time in which they could be doing stuff with the advantage from the super minions in the side lanes. In any case, blue team is not really that coordinated either. They're scattered all around the map. Let's see if they can punish Galio here, the Rengar plus MissFortune combo. If she lands a good ulti, it should be possible. Oh no, Nidalee is here too. The Zhonyas coming in clutch, denying Nidalee the hard engage, and then Galio gets killed. Duskblade invincibility. Beautiful. This is exactly why Zhonya's is such a skill-intensive item. She Zhonya'd at just the right moment. Or was it just a stopwatch? Yeah, it was just a stopwatch. But plays like these, the stasis effect is so important. If people sneak up on you, you're not a great duelist, but if you can just pop into stasis and protect yourself from pretty much anything the opponent can do to you. Here we even see the Edge of Night spell shield blocking the probably 1000 damage Nidalee spear. But before, yeah, they're running on top of her, and before they can do anything to this Misfortune, she just pops her, in this case, stopwatch. And Galio does the same, it doesn't matter. As soon as he pops other stopwatch, he gets killed. Does he? I mean, we saw the situation already. But he goes down, and Nidalee, again, can't do anything because of the Dustblade invincibility. So we have 3 layers of protection here. We have the Edge of Night, the Dustblade, and the Zhonya's Hourglass. And this is definitely worth the AP investment on the item, on the full item. Here we can also see the full Misfortune ultimate as a follow-up. Absolutely crazy, and you definitely want to be able to do that more often in the game than just once. And after this base, she actually upgraded the stopwatch, the now broken stopwatch, into Zhonya's Hourglass right away. Okay, Jax just goes down, nothing special here. Also E damage surprisingly strong, despite being the ability you max last, so the base damage doesn't matter as much anymore, but it still triggers cheap shots, still triggers Arcane Comet, and of course triggers the on-spell damage from Mura Mana. So if you have a look at the rune damage, actually 2,300 almost from Comet, 1,200 from Cheap Shot, 700 still from Scorch, so great value, but definitely an early game focused rune page. This Rel, man, she can't catch a break, she just gets bullied left and right. And in terms of strategy, Baron is spawning very soon, so blue team should be looking to control that. Also, Dragon Soul on the line. Just a little bit later, Dragon still needs like half a minute extra, but Baron is on the map already. So yeah, this is definitely the place to be for blue team. They have pushed in the top lane too, so they see enemies coming through their lanes. They of course could just be sneaking straight up through the jungle, but I mean, we should have enough wards for that. Nidalee is already here, showing herself with that spear shot. Yeah, ward behind the Baron pit, so you see where the enemies are approaching, where they might try to steal. And well, red team's trying to trade the Baron for the Dragon, which will delay the Dragon's soul just for a little bit, but will it be enough? I mean, now you have to deal with... The Dragon Soul might not even come into play. Now you have to deal with Baron minions running down your base, and you're... Well, okay, this is a disaster. Okay, never mind. For a second I thought this would get stolen, but red team does in fact secure the Dragon. However, they have no shot. Misfortune deals way too much damage, and red team cannot really remove her as a damage source due to all her defensive counterplay with the 3 defensive item effects of Zhonya's Edge of Night and Dustblade. She just runs at the enemy. No reason to even second guess yourself. You just run at them. If anything goes wrong, well, if Dustblade invincibility doesn't proc, you still have your Zhonya's invincibility. And now, all blue team needs to do is push through, ideally through the top lane, because you can still take 1, 2 towers and an inhibitor, as opposed to in the bot lane just 1 tower and an inhibitor. But right now, I mean, Misfortune, she doesn't really have a reason to base. She can also just stay there and apply pressure in the mid lane. It's not too bad, but she must be careful, now that she's all by herself, not to overcommit. Even with the Zhonya's, when you're by yourself, it doesn't really do anything, because Zhonya's, first and foremost, buys your team time to protect you. But if there is no team there, Zhonya's won't do much for you. Anyway, she patiently waits, she doesn't overcommit too much, and I mean, ideally she would have still based just to be extra safe and walked towards the lane together with her team instead of waiting in the enemy jungle, but it still worked in this case. And now Nautilus leads the charge. We're looking for that very same strategy. We wait for Nautilus to find the engage, so we can then follow up with Misfortune's amazing burst damage. We outright pop in the ult, not messing around with Jax's passive stance of evasion and dodging of well, auto attacks, and Misfortune's Q even, which is just a glorified auto attack. Jax will also dodge that one while in his evasion, if I'm not mistaken. But now with their most valuable teammate dead, I'm pretty sure blue team can just seal the deal here. Yeah, this looks too detrimental to recover from. They can just take down those towers. By the way, this rank 1 Korean player, I've also tested the build myself on my gameplay channel, so if you want to see that, just click the link on your screen.